Volume? 1, 2. 1, 2. Can you hear me? Is it on? Oh, it's on. Ladies and gentlemen, please can we make our way back into the conference hall? Thank you. Would like to start in about a minute. Thank you. Right, so ladies and gentlemen, please can you take your seats? We'll be starting imminently, that's the right word, when Mark comes with his bell. Now, while I have you, before we start our next session, can I have your attention, please? Oh, do I put my hand up? Hand up. Thank you. Right, before I forget, ladies and gentlemen, on the desk at the front, there's a form. This is the documentation form for the signature consent. Please could you fill it in? Yeah, it's a consent form. Please could you fill it in? It's at the desk at the front. And also, I'd just like to also acknowledge, because I haven't done it before, EcoNet and Cassava Technologies. They're the ones who are helping us with our connectivity, the connectivity partners. So thank you to EcoNet and Cassava, as well as, of course, all our Agile Data and DPI Summit sponsors and partners who are here present. Do I have to put my hand up again? Thank you very much indeed. Right. Oh, I wish I had a drum. It was brilliant, that. Thank you, well done. I love that. Right, ladies and gentlemen, now we are coming to a keystone session for the whole summit, in fact. Over the past hour, we've heard about urgency, we've heard about infrastructure, we've heard from farmers and what systems feel like on the ground. This session is going to ask more deliberate question. What exactly are we bringing together and why? Because agile data and digital public infrastructure are often spoken about as if their connection is obvious. It actually isn't. Agile data is about learning quickly, responsively, and with farmers at the center. DPI is about coordination, standards, governance, interoperability, and shared rails. Each is extremely powerful in its own right. You can imagine what they're like together. But neither is sufficient on its own to deliver farmer-centered outcomes at scale. This session grounds the summit in a shared understanding of what each approach does and where each reaches its limit. It also raises the central question that will carry through the rest of our time together here in Victoria Falls. How do we connect application and infrastructure so systems actually work for farmers? We are fortunate to hear directly from the funders behind these respective approaches, alongside those working at the intersection of strategy and implementation. So please join me in welcoming all our panelists today, representing the Gates Foundation and the strategic vision behind Agile Data. Big round of applause, please. Richard Caldwell, Senior Program Officer in Agricultural Development. Welcome, Richard. Joining Richard, we will now have the pleasure of asking Audra Wilson-Max to come up. She is the Communications Director for COSA. Audra, please, a big round of applause for Audra. Thank you. And of course, on the other side as well, we accompanying them as well as in terms of the sponsors and the partners here. We have Lars representing the Team Europe Initiative Regional Coordination for Africa. Lars, thank you. There he is. He is taller than me, so I'm short. That's brilliant. Thanks, Lars. And last but not least, David Sengozi Keyunye, of course, who's joining Lars as well. Please, David. Oh, here he is. There he is. Oh, come on, guys. Come on. It's TiVo. We can do better. I saw someone put on your feeling. Someone put, woo. That's what I like, yeah? Yeah, unless you like WWE, but then let's not get down that road. Right, so this is where strategic intent meets operational reality. Okay. Agile data, bringing agile data and DPI together, what for? This is the title of our session right now. Richard, let's set the scene, I think. We've been talking here about agile data, we're talking about DPI, which we'll talk about later with Lars. But we've heard this term agile data used now over the last couple of years, more and more and more. So I suppose a fundamental question for me is, what is agile data?
Okay, I'll attempt to answer that. First, I'd like to say it's a hard act to follow farmers, so I'm not totally pleased with the schedule. But before I explain agile data, let me talk about some data that's not agile, just so we have a contrast in our mind. It's important data, though. So the first one is data that represents national or subnational statistics. And that's, for example, the DHS, which is well known, the Living Standard Measurement Surveys, ISA, that were particular in agriculture, that the World Bank led. There's the Global Findex that focuses primarily on digital. There's things like the 50-30, the 50 by 30, maybe not all of you have heard of that, but that's a fairly new initiative to get agricultural surveys in 50 countries by 2030. Now, these are pretty big and expensive endeavors. Findex, for example, I think has about over 300 indicators in the questionnaire. It surveys 150,000 people per year, and per country it repeats the cycle about every 3 to 4 years. So you get up-to-date statistics that are nationally representative every 3 to 4 years. And that's very similar for LSMS, which is probably no longer going to exist in its current form, and other of these big type surveys. And they're very expensive, but they do provide really crucial data. And if you repeat them over time, then you get a trend, a temporal trend, and so you can tell what's the rate of growth in terms of the people being banked, what is the rate of growth in terms of people having connectivity, and those are really important statistics, but they're very different than what I'm going to talk about. The other kind of bucket of data is the data that we do on project basis, like impact assessments, impact evaluations, and other types of evaluations. Again, very important. They're typically in the order of a couple hundred questions on a survey. They generally take 2 to 3 hours per farmer to administer. They typically have a counterfactual, so you have the farmers that you are serving, and you have an equal group of farmers that have not been treated or served in those same, and then that allows you the contrast when you go through the program. And those are typically 3 rounds of surveys, certainly in agriculture. Agriculture is really hard. I look back at my career and I think I should have been in education or health, because then you can go to clinics and get all the data you need. You can go to schools and get attendance records. But agriculture, you're dealing with crops, you're dealing with changes in weather every year. So when we're doing evaluations, we need multiple cycles. Yeah, and those, again, evaluations are usually talking to 2,000 to 3,000 households, including counterfactual, and with cycles like a baseline, a midline, and an inline. So those are expensive, they're really valuable. Impact evaluations tell us with a great deal of precision what the impacts have been on farmers in terms of things like productivity, in terms of income, household income, women's empowerment, nutrition, other outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So if I can have a slide, let me then switch and talk about Agile data. Agile data seeks to solve 2 fundamental problems. One is the need for real-time, or certainly near real-time, but hopefully real-time actionable data that we can use to make decisions on the fly, right? So, and you don't get that from a survey that comes every 2 or 3 years, or from an impact evaluation that takes 3 years to conduct, and you don't even really know the outcomes until the final year. The other thing it tries to solve is, how can we do this cost effectively? How can we do this at a price point that makes it doable, that makes it sustainable? And so my mantra, if you will, on Agile data, and this is what I think Agile data is for that solving those two problems, is what makes them different is their short duration, high frequency, they use diverse channels, and they're at a relatively low cost. So this is the mantra that I want you to take home with you. There's going to be a test at the end of the day to make sure that you remember these. When I say short duration, obviously, maybe before I get into more detail, the other thing is that you don't have to really meet all 4 criteria to be considered doing Agile data, right? Agile data can actually be high cost, and I'll get into that in a second. But by short duration, I'm talking about, instead of a 2 to 3 hour survey that an impact evaluation might do, maybe talking about a 20 to 30 minute survey, or even less, that an Agile data approach might use. When I talk about high frequency, again, for some, high frequency is an annual survey, but in Agile data, we can have high frequency that, for example, corresponds to the cropping cycle. So you're asking farmers when they're getting ready to plant, what variety are you going to use? How are you paying for labor for land preparation? You can ask farmers all about land preparation. You can go back 2 months later and ask them about pesticides, about crop growth, about fertilizer. You can go back 2 months later and ask them about harvest and ask about marketing. So you can have high frequency surveys, again, short duration, that are just asking farmers very specific questions. And those questions are relevant to what they're actually doing at that time. Diverse channels, this has really been a growth area, but you really choose the channel or the way you want to interact with the farmer based on the situation. But Agile data makes use of IVR, it makes use of direct phone calls, it makes use of commercial apps and customized apps, it makes use of text, like through SMS or through WhatsApp or through things like, I forgot the other one. Anyway, Telegram. In fact, we're doing some work with Telegram now in Ethiopia. And then low cost. Obviously, if you're doing something with fewer questions, takes fewer time, it's going to be cheaper. But also, these channels really have an impact on cost. So cost is really a factor of the number of people you're talking to, the duration that you're talking with them, and the channel that you're using. And you can have all different combinations that will really affect the cost. Am I
Richard,
talking too much?
let's ask you another question, because I'd like you to continue with the thoughts. Unfortunately, we have to try and keep the questions succinct. One of the comments you made, if I remember, we were talking yesterday, and I liked it very much. You said, Agile data at its heart focuses on tracking farm-level outcomes that matter. Our farmers becoming more productive, less exposed to risk, earning more, improving nutrition, and gaining empowerment, especially, of course, amongst women and I'm sure youth. So why Agile data? What makes it relevant now?
Right. Again, I'll go back to 4 things. One is that we need data, we need information that tells us, we need to get better at scaling what works. And so we need the information about what works, and then we need strategies to scale it. We also need to stop what doesn't work. At the foundation, we have a really hard time. We have a really easy time starting things. We have a really hard time stopping things. But if things aren't working, then we need to know when they're not working. Then we need to either have solutions that make them work or stop. We also need to adapt and adopt in real time. We need to ensure that solutions are inclusive, and inclusivity is a really important factor. So we need to make sure that people are benefiting across very diverse backgrounds against diverse contexts. that women and youth and all other groups are actually benefiting. And we need to, again, be conscious of cost, because budgets are decreasing everywhere. Development funds, as we all know, have really been on the downhill path. Governments have high debt, so governments have very, limited funds about how they're going to invest. So those are the four things that I think make it relevant now.
I think Tony, in fact, all of the farmers spoke in the previous session about their belief that any system, whatever's put in place, requires both farmers' inputs as well as real-world insights. So does Agile Data deliver real-world insights, and are there any risks?
No.
There you go. No to both.
No, of course there are risks. I'll talk about two kinds of risks. One is the risk of data itself. So no matter what approach you're taking from a data perspective, you can have really poorly designed studies. You can have built-in bias. You can have selection bias. You can have recall bias. You can have all kinds of problems with data. And the saying is, bad data leads to bad decisions. So that's one risk that we always have. A little bit more related to Agile Data and DPI, what we're talking about this week, I'll talk about two things really quickly. One is misalignment. So often when you have a theory of change, or you have this great concept paper or proposal that lays out the strategy and it sounds all so good, doesn't always turn out that way. And so that misalignment can come from maybe preconceived notions, poor assumptions. And so we really need this high turnover of data to really check those assumptions in the beginning to make sure that we are actually on the right path, that we are well positioned and designed actually to go forward. The second one is exclusion, and I just talked about inclusion, but exclusion is kind of the opposite. But we really need to make sure that people aren't excluded. And one example of that is around adoption. Adoption of technologies, adoption of practices. People adopt for all different reasons, and you always have maybe the more progressive farmers adopting early, and some of the other farmers sitting in the background just watching and waiting. We need to really make sure that we are designing programs and that we're implementing programs that have inclusivity and exclusivity in mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. It's important. I think that's a great high-level aspect. We asked what is Agile Data, the risks associated with it, and Richard has given us some very concise answers there. But we also need to understand exactly what Agile Data is doing in the field. Now, COSA has been conducting research-based Agile Data projects in multiple countries. Audra, what has COSA learned? What have you learned doing, throughout the course of these projects?
Thanks, Andy. I think the best place to start this is by grounding this in the project that we did itself, so you can see where the learning came from. And it's a 5-year project. It's a nearly 5-year project that's funded by the Gates Foundation under the stewardship of Richard here. And it represents nearly 5 years. Yes, we've tested 7 channels, 7 Agile Data channels, and directly reached more than 6,000 farmers across 9 countries and multiple crops. We're also working with a network of up to 17 partners. Some of them are here. I'm sure you'll meet them at the summit as you're here. And that scale that we're talking about, the 5 years, the 7 channels, the multiple crops, the number of farmers in a much larger universe than the 6,000, and the partners, that scale matters because these lessons are not theory, okay? They come from real conditions and real context. Now, one of the points of context that matters before anything else is COSA's work itself. And our work starts with measurement. Okay, that is what COSA focuses on. We come from a solid theoretical grounding around sustainability And more than 2 decades, we've been focused on one discipline that determines everything else. Knowing what to measure and why it matters. Because if you measure the wrong things, you can build the most elegant system imaginable and still miss the real truths that are on the ground. So this discipline, knowing what to measure and why it matters, is what has allowed us to adapt our existing indicators into agile-ready formats. That's the breakthrough for us. We've converted what we've known and done for many years into agile-ready formats, refine our research questions, and build credible evidence on what these channels we talk about, the Agile Data channels, can and cannot deliver. Now to answer your question, Andy, from the evidence that we've had, a few things stand out, and I must say that they should change how we think about what is possible. The first thing that we've learned is participation is real. Even in difficult environments and with all the barriers that we know, farmers are engaging. You heard it from the farmers. It's not perfect, it's not everywhere, and it's not without work that still has to be done, but they are engaging. The signal is clear. When engagement is designed with people in mind, which is what we do, participation happens. The second thing we've learned is really important. Training is not optional. So training must be included, but it is not, and it's not optional, but that training has to be personal. So the training that sticks is direct training to individuals. And that has to be reinforced over time. Communication has to be consistent and not occasional. Trust and confidence are built through repeated contact, and one-off instructions don't really work for them. It doesn't stick. So we've found very much that training somebody, not indirectly, it's important that you have that first-hand contact with them and can make the impact and learn from them directly. The third thing is actually that time is compressed. We know this. So with Agile Data, what we've done is we've compressed time. This old rhythm of collect the data now, learn later, adjust next year, is no longer good enough. So what we've learned is that actually we can do so much more and so much faster. And that's a really, really exciting learning that we have. And it's so much more and so much faster to strengthen the decisions across the entire system, from the farmers to the value chains to governments. The fourth potential for scale is immense. This idea that Richard mentions, that scale is important, this is immense when it comes down to what we've learned. Precisely because time is compressed and costs come down. When we can collect credible insights more efficiently, you can reach more people more often, okay? And one of the things that's really important is you don't just get more data, you get more precision out of what you're doing with that contact. We've also learned something that we know is normal in other forms of data collection, that validity is still a challenge, okay? Like any form of data collection, including in-person surveys, as you know, there are risks, there are biases and barriers that we need to understand better. But this trajectory, what we're seeing, is enough to be optimistic about validity and serious about it at the same time.
I mean, here we're talking about Agile Data, being able to reduce information asymmetry. I think that's critical. I think you've been mentioning that in what you've been talking about. Put more tools in the farmer's hands. We talked about credit, weather, training, technical assistance, and more monitoring and evaluation. There's so much more. Audrey, I can't give you too much time to answer the issue about costs, but everyone says Agile Data channels, Agile reduces costs. Well, the channels reduce costs. So just very briefly, what's the catch? Because hey, when someone tells me it's cheap, and I don't know. Carry on.
No, it's true. It does. The channels do reduce cost. They can reduce cost. But the thing about cost is that cost efficiency alone doesn't determine effectiveness. The question here is whether people actually engage. That's the question. Across the countries, adoption technologies and responses vary. We found very well, and we know that context matters. Peer and individual learning and processes also matter. Highly automated channels like IVR, interactive voice response, or fully administered tools can achieve impressive cost savings. On paper, they look elegant, maybe scalable and efficient, but in practice, they often struggle with trust, comprehension, and completeness. Farmers may start something and stop. They may respond to something, but misunderstand it. And sometimes they may disengage entirely. When that happens, the cost savings don't translate to learning.
Yeah. I think that's critical there because, yes, Agile Data channels can reduce costs. I'm not sure there is a catch, but there's always a catch somewhere in terms of what we need to work through. So I wouldn't really put it into the catch. I think, as we say, it matters when the survey is complex. I like this. It matters when the topic is sensitive. Yeah? Okay, going for that? They keep on going there? Yeah, it matters.
Yeah, it matters. It does matter.
It does matter. These things matter. When rigor is critical, and it matters when there is constant and direct training and communication. Yeah. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, before I move to DPI, I even gave you a bow. I like that. I'd like to ask you a question. Right, here's the question. And I would like you, those who agree yes, can stand up. Those who say no can remain seated. Okay? So the question is this. With your newly gained understanding of what Agile Data is, amply explained by Richard with proof in terms of the field research from COSA by Audra, who has realized only now that you're actually practicing Agile Data without being aware of it? So those of you who say you've only realized now, stand up, please. Wow. So you all are using Agile.
Someone stood up.
Oh, someone stood up. Oh, thank you. You're the one standing up. Here we go. Right, so maybe I could ask you, you're only now realizing you're practicing Agile Data. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I know the importance of data, but I didn't know what Agile Data was. But when it was explained, it got to me to say, yes, I was practicing it, but without knowing it. But I think now, I think the going only gets tougher when you now know. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just say your name quickly.
Raphael Mbayo from Old Mchwa, Zimbabwe.
Raphael, okay, so now you know Raphael. Oh, someone here, Emma, is it? Emma? Alma, sorry. Alma?
Hi, my name is Amma Ikwamo. I'm from Opportunity International. I think the lady and I agree here on semantics, that for our different organizations, we might have coded different things. So in my organization, would have said human-centered design. And that data then cuts across not only for our engineering team, but also for our deployment teams who are on the ground, and then for the systems that we've created within the communities that we work with, who are farmer support agents, who work within these communities, and how we communicate data to them, because a lot of the data that we are collecting is coming from the farmers they work with through to us, to the engineering teams. So I think some of us might call it different things within our organization, but it's always nice that we define what it is that we are doing and how that applies to our different contexts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for Irma. Thank you so much for that. So, I think we've been given, remember what I said about this session? It's about laying the core understanding foundation. Some of you may say, oh, I already know this, some may not. But now we all have a clear understanding, I believe, what Agile Data is, thanks to Richard and Audra. Now, we move to digital public infrastructure, DPI. Sounds very impressive, Lars, yeah? And I don't know whether I've been hearing DPI, I've been hearing whether it's a buzzword, whether it's something that people are just using to say something. What does DPI actually mean? And in plain terms, what does it actually look like in the real world?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I think in the interest of time, since we have already had the excellent keynotes today, this morning, there's nothing to add.
Oh, brilliant!
But if you okay, if you insist,
I insist.
If you insist, I would really very simply say, DPI is about sharing digital technologies and services, and we have heard a lot about these analogies already this morning about the rails or maybe the roads, and I like this analogy. So. Imagine I need to admit I'm the first time in Zimbabwe. I'm very impressed. I like it very much. I've seen the falls, very beautiful. So I'm not very familiar. But I guess there might be a lot of people who have the need to travel from Victoria Falls to Harare and back and maybe onwards, right? So how do you do that? You can take, I don't know if there's a train connection, so maybe you can take a train, or you can take a car, your own car, or you can cycle if you're very ambitious. You might walk, I don't know. So, but you have a train system, and imagine nobody would, start to build their own road there, right, or their own railway track. Or in other words, you might be in the digital world, actually, you're confronted, or you might be confronted with 163 different railways or different roads. And if you want to use your bike on the road, you can only use one or not the other one, and then you're challenged with the online connection. Or you're challenged, you don't understand the signaling because it's everywhere different. And sometimes you cannot afford it, or you simply don't trust the railroad. You don't know if it's safe. You don't really know it. So digital public infrastructure, coming back to this analogy, is actually basically having a shared railway system that anybody can use, that is trusted, that is efficient, that is ideally much more affordable than fragmented systems, shared signaling, joint trust. So in a nutshell, this enables much more the accessibility, it enables inclusion, it enables the exchange of standardized data in a regulated and trusted environment. And with that, we've heard that already, it really provides the ground for inclusion, for accessibility, but also for innovation, and for ultimately much better services and scale.
I do like that. I do like your analogy, and it kind of puts it a little bit more into perspective. I say a little bit because, of course, I'm not an expert in this, but how about this for a question? You've said all of that. How about, what does it look like in practice? I mean, like, have you got any practical examples of exactly what this may look like?
Yeah, thank you for this question. By mere coincidence, I brought a slide with you here.
By mere coincidence.
Which is a iconic picture right now. We brought from Honduras, working with valued partners like SIAT. Brian is here with us, but also FAO. And it is important not to talk but to show and demonstrate that things work. And this picture is an expression of this example. So coming back from the need, traveling from A to B, this is based on the initial use case of convening different actors, public and private partners, around a shared destination, which means how to ensure or how to tackle EUDR compliance for coffee. So that was the starting point. And this behind this huge banner actually is a container of coffee. So it was the first container of coffee which was DPI enabled, exported, deforestation free. If you want, you can try to share the QR code, and who will be first to tell me what's behind that?
Yeah.
So
who's the first to say?
Looking at EUDR, I'll just keep on talking.
Yep.
Looking at EUDR, there are certain necessities and certain capabilities that everybody needs to fulfill, right? If you're competitors or if you're collaborators, so you need to have the polygons, or you need to digitize, your fields and to know where the crops come from. Then you need to run a deforestation check to see whether deforestation has occurred or not. And ultimately, very bluntly, and then you need to trace it. You need to be able to provide traceability along the supply chain. And these capabilities have been, with open source tools, have been fulfilled through a registry for polygons, open source tools to capture the polygons first, a free service to run robust and comparable deforestation analyses, and then provide traceability. And it's a result of a collaborative approach of competitors, of the public sector, cooperatives, exporters, and so on. And within that, one more point I would like to add here. So each farmer has a card, and each farmer controls their own data. So they can, with permission, pass on the card. And the other thing, there's a collaboration, I think it's already on the picture, with a consortium of banks. We've had that this morning already. So they can plug into a shared data space to do credit scoring based on the transaction data that are generated through this thing. And the use cases are about to expand. We will talk about this later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Thank you, Lars. David, really quickly, because I really wanted to also lean into your experience of what's happening on the ground, as we always talk about, the microphone is there, where we talk about farmers. So how look at Uganda, for example. Maybe give us a little bit more insight into a project that you're working on there and how effective it may be because of DPI.
Thank you very much. When the issue of EUDR came up, the response in Uganda was every actor wanted, or exporters wanted to go. Actually, they went down and started collecting their own data, but there was a lot of chaos because the farmers sort of got fatigued because each and every person was coming to ask the same farmer. So they realized that, having individual efforts in putting in place systems that will make the country become compliant to EUDR was a waste of time and also a waste of resources. So under what we call the Uganda Coffee Platform, they came together and agreed that all the actors within the coffee sector need to work together. And that's how they came up with an idea of establishing what we call the National Data Warehouse. Of course, it is led by the government, and with support from different partners. Data is being collected from the farmers. Mainly, of course, you have to collect the name of the farmer and the polygon of different farms. and put them all that kind of information together, and also check if those polygons are deforestation free. So all that data is put in one centralized place, and is managed by government, is currently managing it under the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industries and Fisheries. But it is a free good which can be accessed by other actors with permission. Of course, you link in, you request for permission to get the data, and then they give you permission to access that data. Of course, what is very unique, of course, they have put in place all the governance rules, how data is supposed to be accessed, by who, and when. So it is a public good, and we hope that it will make the country attain EUDR readiness. And in Uganda, we have also started the process of establishing the national traceability system. Yes, and so far, about 5 traceability application softwares have been approved to support the establishment of the traceability systems. Now, these two are linked together in a way that they are creating what we call a data exchange platform, where the national traceability system can connect with the national data warehouse. So we feel that really the two are connected, and it will make the country become more efficient in terms of complying with EUDR. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I have to, no, hang on, to give it to Lars. Lars, I'm going to ask you 2 very quick questions, just so that we can, because I do want to get to the complementarity of Agile Data and DPI. 2 questions combined. The first question, of course, is the key ingredients for DPI. What are they? And the second question is, of course, which I suppose is the critical question, is how does DPI actually benefit farmers? Those are your 2 questions, very quickly.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you need to build the railways. You need to define the gauge width, the safety standards. You need to work on data. So data standards are integral part. Data standards are an integral part, but also data itself, making data available and accessible. Important piece. That's the tech part, and I like to call this the tip of the iceberg. Now, coming to the iceberg is all around people. Tech is easy. People are complex, and policy. So we need to agree on the traffic rules, the signaling, the timetables. We need to agree who oversees the system, who takes decisions, what are the ticket prices, who maintains it, etc., etc. In a nutshell, we need to agree on the policy part, the right piece, enabling rules, the governance structure, business model, and everything around that. So, and that's as I said, the iceberg, because you need to build consensus. You need to build trust between different parties, competing parties, competitors, and so on. Coming to the benefits of farmers, we actually started with DIASCA almost 3 years ago, and we were encountered with a situation. We were talking about traceability. We were encountered with a situation that we had like cooperatives that were working with 5 different traceability systems. And in the end, they needed to produce the data 5 or even more times for different buyers' needs. In the end, they didn't control their data anymore. So we thought, okay, let's start off with standardization. But DPI combined together with all these different elements, having these shared railroads, definitely fosters inclusivity. It reduces this burden of data production multiple times, but to the contrary, enables ultimately multi-purpose data. We've heard that. You know, same data can be used for credit scoring, for other things, and to inform other services. We have data sovereignty. We might have more economic and also digital independence in the end. And ultimately, if you have better data, better access to data, etc., you have better and more trusted services. That's much in a nutshell in the interest of time.
Okay, thank you. I know there's a lot more you could talk to it. Right, before we now move to the complementarianism, is that the right word? Yeah, anyway, well, that's the word, right? It's the word we're using today, between Agile Data and DPI. Let's ask a question. Understanding what DPI does for you after the excellent presentation and examples given by Lars and David, who just suddenly realized how dependent you are on DPI? So those who have suddenly realized how dependent you are on DPI, please stand up. Aha. I like it when, oh, here we go. There's a couple. Right. So a quick one, Mark. Let's go quickly, just very quickly, how, really briefly up. I know there's someone at the back there stood up. Who stood up at the back? All right. Please go ahead, Christian.
Yeah. Now, not necessarily in agriculture, but DPI has been
used a lot
in national systems for national identities, but then having the national identity enables you to access so many other services. Gotcha. Like in Mauritius, now we get fined for our driving offenses, and they've developed an app for us to be able to check, you know, how far we are down the road to losing our licenses. But that's an example of DPI.
So it's a real life. It's actually, we're using DPI in like real life existent right now. Very quickly, Tony, I mean, this is great that you now, yeah?
Yeah, I think we all rely on DPI because some of the data sets are part of the national system. So ideally, we need to interact with national databases to get information for our business.
Thank you for that. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we only have about 12 or 13 minutes left, but we're getting to
Andy?
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, so I didn't just really learn about DPI right now, but I just wanted to throw in one more example. Most of you probably remember how 15 years ago for our phones everybody needed their own charger, and now we're down to everybody has the same charger, like a USB-C charger, and that is also DPI, just as a small example. Thank you.
Oh, that's a really good example. I wouldn't have thought about that, but there we go. Well done. Please give everyone a round of applause who has managed to answer. Thank you for standing up and giving us your perspectives. Right. This for me is now the crux of it. We've heard Agile, we've heard DPI, now complementarity between them. I like that. So let's start with you, Lars. What becomes possible when Agile Data and DPI are intentionally connected? Are they complementary or not?
Of course they are.
Okay, thanks, Lars. Right, moving on.
As I said, so yeah, data is an integral, data and data exchange is an integral part of a broader concept called DPI. So we have it here. And all the technology runs on data. And I sometimes say, the digital services run on data. Technology are the pipes, data are the water or the oil, whatever your preference is. And then ultimately we have the different services, use cases. We see here advisory, for information for farmer to inform own decisions, policy decisions, market access, and we've heard all of that. Ideally data driven. And on the other hand, we have like different sources. In the center you have DPI, including a shared data ecosystem. Data might come from collecting farm data, remote sensing, and so on, satellite imagery, open data, many different things. So if we possibly go to the next slide, we have generally talking about data, we have certain data challenges. We heard also about the FAIR principles: are data findable, accessible, interoperable, and most importantly also reusable. But then also, what about data quality, timeliness, the credibility of the data, and not to forget the cost of the data. And this is exactly, I think, where Agile can come in. I hope this is not too complicated, but we see that Agile basically, as well as DPI, might serve like different needs, and it goes through feeding a shared data ecosystem. The better the data and the better timely the data, the better the services. So there's a clear complementarity, no doubt about it.
Richard, I think let me throw exact same question to you, looking from the Agile data to the DPI, of course.
Yeah, I think I'd probably be repeating myself a lot because these areas of inclusion are so important, and I think Agile Data, what Agile Data does is it changes the economics of learning, right? And if you remember the picture that Nar showed of all the railroad tracks, DPI has so much interconnectivity that you've got a lot of nodes in there that you really have to learn around. And so I think really the only way to do it and do it economically is through sort of an Agile approach. And so that's kind of, I think, where I really see the complementarity. There are other ways to collect data, but if you can, I don't think the only way you can afford to do it and afford to learn in such a complex system as DPI is incorporating some of these Agile principles.
Thank you for that. David, you know, I wanted to come to you a bit earlier on when you were talking about the benefits to farmers as well, but I think when we talk about connectivity or complementarity between Agile Data and DPI, you're working with SAFE, a global program supporting EUDR readiness, and I think EUDR, particularly amongst coffee farmers, is very relevant and very important. How do you use or implement DPI and Agile Data in that type of context? And possibly as well, you could just very briefly talk about some of the benefits that you see to farmers using the DPI as well, which I'd like to ask you earlier. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. The farmers who are here, they told us all that all these things which we are talking about, if they don't make sense to them, or if they don't deliver benefits to them, they remain mainly workshop buzzwords. Therefore, when you look at integration of data, integration of DPI together with the Agile Data, it offers a transformative opportunity to modernize a provision of agricultural services to the farmers, which is very important. Where DPI provides the foundational rail, such as digital identity, interoperable payment systems, and secure data exchange platforms. While DPI provides the real-time analysis of data like weather patterns, production trends, farmers' transactions. Now, when you combine the two, you will find that you will be able to provide the services, very quick services to the farmers in a faster way, in a very faster way. For example, financial services, and also provide smart advisory services to the farmers. So the two are key, and they need to move together in order to benefit the farmers. And then on the issue of EUDR, under the SAFE project, SAFE is Sustainable Agriculture for Forestry Ecosystems. It is part of Team Europe initiative on deforestation free value chains. We are it is being implemented in a number of countries, 5 countries in in Africa, and Uganda is one of them. And the focus is to support these partner countries to put in place systems that will help them to comply with the the EUDR regulation. As we are doing, what we are doing as SAFE, we are supporting different partners to set up national traceability systems and then also national database, such that they can provide evidence that to European competent authorities that the coffee which is being traded or being exported to Europe is deforestation free. We are doing that one in different countries, but our approach is we don't dictate. Countries decide on how they want to go about it. I have given an example for the case in Uganda. They decided to have a kind of a centralized database, which is somehow controlled by government. But in other countries, of course, it is private sector led. That's the decision for different countries. But it is to serve the same purpose. Be able to provide evidence that the product is deforestation free to European competent authorities. Right. Thank you.
Richard, just a final word. I know that you've heard from Lars and David. Any final comment just to link the two together from your perspective?
Well, I guess to continue the train analogy, DPI builds the rails and Agile Data, I guess, does the sensing, right? And someone said it does the steering too, but I don't think that applies very well for trains. But that'd be my last word.
Thank you so much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the final question of the session. Right, here we go. Question is, will your work benefit from the complementarity, yay, I got it right, between the two, I got it right here. Will your work benefit from the complementarity between the two? So, those who say no, stand up. Oh, there we go. Because if I say those who say yes, stand up. I was worried about that. Mark, help me pick two beautiful people from the audience. Do you mind just to comment about why? Ladies, I hope. Ah, there we go, yes. And Miranda as well, yeah. You want to comment? Both of you, yes, please.
Yes, so we build traceability systems, but we took a different approach by building them from the bottom up. So to meet regulations, but also to fulfill farmers' needs. And so we've built the traceability system for those users, for the farmers, and in fulfillment of a regulation. Sorry, I'm going around in a circle. The point being that when you build the systems and want people to put data in, you can use the carrot or the stick. The stick is the regulation, and what we tried to do was really find the carrot in the scenario, which is what is the value proposition to the farmers. So when you were mentioning earlier this idea that Agile Data survey, it could help surveys, in my mind I was thinking, why would you need to do a survey if you've built a system that's already collecting that sort of information for the farmer to help support them in their everyday business, and you're simply analyzing it rather than adding a layer of reporting to it. So not to pick a fight, but only to suggest if we're truly getting to the core of interoperability, we build for farmers, we collect data, they use that to improve how they do business. From that, we glean a lot of information that helps industries and governments, and not the other way around. But brilliant. That's just my humble opinion.
Thank you. Your name?
Corlina Patterson.
Corlina Patterson,
I'm
thank
the
you.
Canadian top of the dot.
Oh, you're the dot in the middle of the, right at the top there, near the Rocky Mountains. I don't know if the Rocky Mountains are in Canada. Miranda, hi.
Thank you so much, Andy. Complementarity between Agile Data and DPI is very, very clear. And when the tone was set by actually defining what they stand for, the benefits are more than explanation. So in terms of complementarity, I come from UNFPA. That is the agency that I heard. You mentioned about DHS data. We have census data. So we need both to be able to deliver for who the people-centered approach. And I believe that when you use the different avenues, say they are short duration, high frequency. It's not as long as when you want to do a census. You carry the census over a period of time, or you do DHS over a period of time, or you do mix over a period of time. But when we're talking about the data that we are now talking about, the agricultural sector is very important. It's seasonal. So we have to complement one another to address the specific needs of that farmer who is on the ground for the people. So we have to complement and work with another. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give the two ladies a big round of applause for standing up. Oh, come on, guys. That was a really weak clap. Whoa. Right, so I hope that we have set the stage. So what did we do this morning? First of all, we now know what Agile Data and DPI are from a high level. We understand the case for them to be connected. There's no doubt about it. And that seems to be unavoidable. And now we have work to do. Because this was a nice sitting here and listening to panelists and farmers and so forth chatting away. Now we're going to get into the groups. We need from data democracy, scale, policy, consensus, standardization, shared registries, national data infrastructure, trust frameworks. We're going to be diving deeper into those issues and more. But before we do that, a big, big round of applause for our panelists, please. Richard, Audra, Lars, and David, thank you very much indeed. Come on, give them a big round of applause as they leave the stage. Thank you so much for that. That was brilliant. Yeah, go on. Remember, they're still walking. They're still walking. Yeah. There we go. Right, ladies and gentlemen, now, of course, as you know, we do have co-facilitators and facilitators everywhere in the room. And now we're going to get into what we're going to be doing a bit later on. Carolyn, over to you.
Yeah, it's very short, but we've already introduced Turn to Your Neighbor, and you've been listening quite a lot since the morning. So as a way just to integrate and reflect a little bit, we're going to do the same process. Please to talk to someone that probably is not your neighbor anymore, because you've been talking to everybody, everyone sitting just next to you. But talk to someone you haven't interacting with. We're going to have 5 minutes discussion. Just reflect what has triggered your interest from the discussion this morning. Again, we've talked about farmers, we've talked about DPI Agile. And the second question is, maybe start think about an experience, a practice that you wish to share with your peers. This afternoon is going to be about sharing, learning, and what we want is to tap into your experience. So just start thinking about what is one practice or an experience that you want to share, and that will contribute to the discussion. So 5 minutes of discussion, and then we move to next.
That works brilliantly. So, before we break for lunch, we would like to share with you what is going to happen this afternoon. This afternoon we are going to have 9 sessions, and you each will have to choose 2 out of the 9. 5 will be revolving around the issue of DPI, and we will look at different cases, case studies, situations that specifically deal with particular issues in DPI. And then we will have a second round which discuss and present specific issues within the field of agile data. So things you have heard here that we've just touched on lightly, you will have more time to do a bit of a deep dive into one of those. For you to make an informed decision, we will now do a series of 9 very short pitches, basically sales announcements, so that you can decide what you would like to do, what you would like to see. I know, choices are hard, but that is what we need to deal with in a confined space of a 3-day conference. Next one. When you leave the room, you will find out here desks where you can register for 2 sessions. There will also be summaries of the sessions if you want to read up a bit. And coming out of the room to your left, there is this resource wall. There is a QR code which gives you an access to the summaries of those sessions. The registration happens in the way that you get stickers, which you stick on the back of your badge. It's going to be on a first come, first served basis, so we have limited seats in each of those sessions. So if you're kind of indifferent, then you can get your sticker later, but if you're very particular which session you would like to see, we recommend you get the sticker on your way out to lunch, yeah? Can I see the next slide, please? There's going to be 2 sets of stickers. The ones on the left are all around DPI. And we will hear these pitches right now, and then the ones with the white square, the white background, they're all around Agile Data. We're going to present them, just that you know what the stickers look like. So you will need one of the full color background, and you will need 1 sticker with the white background. And you stick them on the back so you don't lose them over lunch, and when you come back, you just look at the back where and what you're going to do. I will explain more how to find your room, but let's now hear a bit what is behind those 9 topics, and we're going to have the 9 presenters each just in really 3 minutes, giving you a little bit of a taste, a trailer of what you're going to see in full this afternoon, in 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. Good. So we have the first. Can I have the next slide, please? We are going to have Jonas, please.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Jonas. I'm with FAO, and we have worked on a couple of DPI solutions, which are very great for geolocation in the field, which has been needed by a lot of farmers all over for different reasons. One of them has been the EUDR, but not exclusively. And then we have another solution that is called Open Forest WISP, that is used for deforestation risk assessments based on globally available data sets. Very great solution, very interesting also for commercial providers, for example, to plug it into their solutions, as well as governments, academia, or cooperatives. I think there was another slide that had a QR code on it. That QR code is for the application Open Forest Ground for geolocation. Those of you who are interested in doing a hands-on experience in my session, you may already scan that QR code. A little caveat, it only works on Android smartphones thus far. And I assume we have many iPhone owners in this kind of session. But if you have an Android device, you can already scan that QR code and maybe install Open Forest Ground, give it a try. And even if you are an iPhone user, you're very welcome to still come to my session. We will show how it works. And there's not only Open Forest Ground for geolocation, there's also WISP for deforestation risk assessments, which is independent of platform. Thank you very much, and happy to have you in my session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. Next slide, please. Good, then we have Gregory. That's group number 2. 2 Gregorys, wonderful.
Thank you very much. So, I'm Greg. This is Greg.
Hi. Before Andre comes in, and I'm sorry to jump in, there is a free Wi-Fi, by the way, dedicated to us. So I think that could be important when we're doing QR codings. If you go into your Wi-Fi, it's AD and DPI, 2 lines, and then Liquid. Okay, this Liquid and Cassava, who are one of our partners, Econet and Cassava, have given us a dedicated internet, so it's going to work well. So thank you to them. So if you go in, you can AD and DPI, 2 lines, Liquid, and you should be able to automatically connect, and it should work everywhere in the hotel. Thank you. Sorry, apologies. Go ahead.
Thanks. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg.
I'm Greg as well. Nice to meet you.
So we work for the International Trade Center. We're an agency of the United Nations, and we're going to be focusing on giving you real concrete examples of DPI.
Yeah, Greg, because look, there are so many DPI tools out there. There are many projects implementing them. So how we can demystify it, how we can show like concrete examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see that at ITC, we've been working in a number of African countries on the EUDR topic in Burundi, Nigeria, DRC, Kenya, Uganda. And we're starting to see something shaping up around this ecosystem of DPI tools and infrastructure, and we'll be referencing some of these examples in our session.
Exactly. So if you'd like to learn more how we connect, how we can build infrastructure that connects WISP, ground, and other public infrastructure components in some concrete examples that we can show you, join us in the session. Greg, any concrete cases or countries you would like to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. We will be focusing on Burundi, which was mentioned this morning, which is a project done under GIZ SAFE. We will be showcasing the whole journey, right from data collection to data storage, data analysis, data sharing, with a sample of close to 200,000 polygons that we have collected so far. So really, I invite you to join to the session. Greg?
Yeah, and we will be also happy to learn from you. What are your experiences from connecting different systems and platforms? What kind of lessons you have, or what kind of requests you are facing? So we'll be happy to discuss this with you after our short intro to the case studies. Thanks.
Thanks.
Good. Group number 3. Let's hear from Brian.
Do we have a clicker for the slide? Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Brian King. I serve as Senior Manager for Technology Integration at CIAT, Alliance Biodiversity CIAT. As we heard from my cousin this morning, Fayaz, interoperability is important, technology solutions are important, but preceding all of that, there needs to be consensus. There needs to be a kind of co-design phase where actors with very diverse interests, public, private, nonprofit, and so forth. How do I operate the clicker now? Down? Okay. You know, this is sort of the culminating moment that we heard about from Lars earlier today. We've got public, private, nonprofit. We've got funders. We've got collaborations from cooperative level, financial institutions, FAO, although their logo's squished on behind those guys there, some farmers. And so to actually get to this point, there was about a 4-month process that we're going to take you through in an hour. And it started with really significant stakeholder consultations, thematic analysis, then going into, okay, so how do we build consensus of what we've learned about those themes, and then how do we actually make sure we leave the room with consensus? And so we're going to take you through that exact same process in a much more accelerated way, thanks to my buddy GPT. And we will not leave the room until we have consensus, okay? All right. So actually, one last thing. This is really anchored in value chains. You know, with a country-level value chain particularly, or just a global value chain, you have a sense of knowing what are the interests that you need to converge. It's various people that participate in a value chain in different ways. And so it's value chain, and it's EU deforestation regulation anchored. And so if you're engaged in a country commodity that is subject to EUDR, we absolutely need you. If you're willing to pretend that you're engaged in a country commodity that is subject to EUDR, we will love to have you. So please. Okay, good.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks a lot. We have group number 4. Howie and Henok.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. This is Howie from Ethiopia, and I work as an ICT director in Ethiopian Convening Authority. And by the way, today our country is celebrating 113th Victory Day of Adwa, in which in which our ancestors fight for freedom. And currently, my country is also driving the digitalization issues, as we all know. Based on this, we developed a DPI-based traceability system for farmers to support these farmers, in which my partner Henok and the developer also, the Vulcan, present it for you now. And after his presentation, we would like you to join the group for us to learn from you, and you guys can learn so much from the session.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Let me start with a very simple question. What happens when a major regulatory like EUDR is introduced and your system isn't ready yet? So, in Ethiopia, something interesting happened. Like 5 years before EUDR come into the picture, we had already started digitalizing our coffee sectors. So at first, it was simple dispatch level traceability, but the goal was to efficiency, transparency, and better coordination. But UDR was not the driving at that time. But when the regulatory arrived, we were not starting from zero. Sorry. Instead of reaching in panic, we evolve, and we remind ourselves for something very important. Farmers are the backbone of our livelihood and our economy as well. So when we expand the system, we didn't just digitalize the compliance. We built a platform to map farms, digitally register farmers, and give them identification and recognition, connecting warehouse through structure, integrating QR-based codes. So what begins an operational digital became a national digital public infrastructure, like we say here, DPI. So in our session, we will share how early digitalization reduced regulation shock, how public and private collaboration strengthens the system, and how farm-level traceability can balance compliance with inclusive smallholder farmers. This is not just a tech story. It's a story about evolution from policy readiness to practice implementation. We will love for you to come to our
and finally, we would like to thank you so much for GIZ for supporting this traceability system development. And we will love you guys to join us to change the narrative of coffee. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have one more session in the first round. Charles and Bilal, wonderful.
Are we supposed to dance? Okay. You have to come to the session. Okay, so good morning still. My name is Charles Angebeau.
Okay, I am Bilal Mouliam, working for the SAFE project in Cameroon. I'm a technical advisor on traceability and private sector cooperation, especially to build inclusive business partnerships in the cocoa and coffee value chain.
So we're going to look at the Cameroonian case, looking back a few years back where it was when we had a few private sector led initiatives and something coming up from the public-private bodies. And we looked at fill gapping supported by GIZ and other developing partners and where we stand now. And we'll review different tools that are being implemented, including eNatrace, an open source system, and the complementarity with the private initiatives and what is being done at the national level or equivalent. And we promise that we won't just tell you that everything works. We'll actually look at the challenges and would like to share with you and maybe get some lessons. We've been talking with Uganda, we're just seeing Ethiopia, there are different initiatives. If you drill a little bit, it's actually not working so well all the time. So those bottlenecks are very much what we would like to explore and looking at the business cases and usability. Yeah. So please come and join us and we'll have a dance. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. That brings us to the second round of presentations. So you will need to choose one of those. You have seen one of those 5, and now we have 4 pitches from the field of Agile Data, and I'd like to invite you, Emily.
Thank you. Emily here from COSA. I can stand over here. So I've noticed something over the years. Many people travel long distances to tell farmers what to do. Adopt this practice, answer this survey, use this technology. And so many organizations, including COSA, say we are farmer-centric. But do we truly understand the farmers we're trying to reach? So if you look at the pictures here, I was born and raised as a dairy farmer. I thought dairy farming looked more or less like this in this picture down here. But then I started traveling, started visiting dairy farms elsewhere, and I realized that behind the tag dairy farmer, there's many more differences than similarities. This is a dairy farm in Canada at minus 30 degrees Celsius. This is a dairy farm at 3,000 meters in the Andes Mountains. Those little white dots are dairy cows. They were milking on steep mountain slopes, carrying portable equipment. And I realized if our lives, our daily routines were so different, they didn't have a parlor, they didn't have flat feeding alleys like we did in Canada. So if our daily lives were so different, our routines were so different, then our voices, our needs, our risks, and even our willingness to answer to some questions was also going to be very different. In the Agile Data project, we tested Agile Data tools, like you've heard earlier, how to reach those farmers. And in my session, we're going to talk about 3 of those. We're going to talk about CATI, which is the telephone interview. We're going to talk about IVR, the interactive voice response. And we're going to talk about WhatsApp, so instant messaging. We're going to take a step back, and we're going to ask the deeper questions, because some of those technologies work better than others. So we're going to look at those challenges, speak through those learnings together, because I'm sure many of you have learnings as well using those same technologies. So we're going to ask 2 questions. The first question is going to be, how do we recognize the many differences behind the word, farmer? And the second question is going to be, how do we then scale those systems without losing that farmer, that human-centered, approach? Through how do we scale through IVR? How do we scale through telephone interviews, and so on? So please join my session.
Thank you, Emily. We have a second session in, we have a second session in Agile, and who is going to introduce this one? Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm Elena Serfilippi, the Research Director at the Committee on Sustainability Assessment. Together with me today we have Tatiana Zelenska, that is the Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Director at Digital Green, and Carlos de los Rios, that is the Senior Economist at the Committee on Sustainability Assessment. We are running the lab too. This lab will be about respondent-mediated technologies, like application-based technologies, and how they are performing in terms of response rate, so participation and engagement of the farmers, and the validity of the outcome measure that we get through these technologies. In particular, COSA will talk about 3 case studies that are Colombia, Ivory Coast, and Burundi. And so basically we are going deeper into the hub that we develop to collect daily information about farmers' activity, about their harvesting activity, about their fertilization activity, pesticides application. And we are going to discuss the outcome measure that we get and the participation rate. And Digital Green will continue the conversation.
Thank you so much. I invite you all to our session because we will also be talking about Farmer Chat, which is AI-powered tool for farmers that speaks the language of the farmers. And I do want to mention that I think the elephant, or I don't know what's the right analogy, in the room is artificial intelligence. I'm surprised we haven't mentioned it yet, but we will talk about our application and how data collection is an integral part of the service we're providing, which I think someone mentioned earlier, and how it's actually benefiting the farmers. Yes, with that, I'm passing the microphone back to you.
Just final words to say that this is going to be a session that is going to be interactive, so there's going to be participation, we're going to be learning from you guys too, and we're going to show you what we have done in the last 4 to 5 years. So thanks so much, and we welcome you all to our session. Bye.
Thank you very much to the team, Elena, Tatiana, and Carlos. We move on to session number 3.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Sylvia. I'm Senior Project Manager at COSA. We are gonna, the 3 of us, introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Togo Zilengwenya from the World Poultry Foundation. I'm the Comcare Coordinator.
I'm Tony Mugoya from Uganda Coffee Farmers Alliance.
So we're gonna be talking about data democracy, which is a topic we have discussed with the farmers here, with other presenters, which we think it's very, very important. The idea of the session is to be very interactive. We want to learn from you. So yeah, we're going to present some of the learnings we have on the field. As the group 2, we're also going to focus on the COSA's work on the app in Ivory Coast, Colombia, and Burundi.
And one of the topics, data to action. So once we do relay the information to the farmer, how do we ensure that that information leads to action? So like with our Comcare that we use and the data with the farmer, how do we show that when they administered the vaccines on time, there was less mortalities? When the feed was given accurately as the bird required, the growth was good. When they weighed the birds were growing, which led to a healthier flock, and that sort of, those sort of parameters. How do we then encourage the farmer to use this data and lead it to action and value as they go about their business?
We're also going to talk about the different ways you deliver the data to farmers. Does all ways, methods serve the same purpose in different contexts, or is particular methods more practical in different contexts?
Yes, and we are going to look at how farmers can access this data, how they can use it, and of course discuss the big topic of data protection. So please come for this session.
Yeah, we would love to learn from you and get our brains together. Thank you.
Thank you to the presenters of Data Democracy, and we have one last session that we would like to announce. Hi. Jessica.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Mullen with the Committee on Sustainability Assessment, and this is
Kirchhoffs with Pax Africa.
So, Kirchhoffs, I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a problem. I'm a practitioner and I deal with Agile Data and DPI all the time. And I feel like, you know, there's some amazing opportunities, but at the same time, there's some trade-offs and breakdowns that are making my life really complicated. Are you running into this?
That's amazing. I wonder if we have all the answers to that. But I think our participants will help us answer the questions. What do you think?
I think so too.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, do you have any questions specifically you would want them?
Yeah, I think in our session, it really is an interactive, totally physically, like moving around kind of session where we want to hear from you. So we're going to do an interactive session where we're going to go through the trade-offs and breakdowns of making Agile Data work with DPI. So if you are a supply chain practitioner, the private sector, public sector, data MEL person, it works best if we have a lot of different voices in the room. Come to our session, and we're going to dig into under the hood of what works and what doesn't, and what we can do to make it better together.
And you know, I see that we're going to Kalala, right?
Yeah.
Great. Let's see. I think I will build on Lars's analogy he made on the transport systems and how they function and all that. So if we can want to imagine that these public transport systems, more like the physical components of digital public infrastructure, would come to our locations where we stay, pick us up like an Uber, take us wherever we go at the pace at which you want to be there. I think that's something Agile can help us do.
I think so too.
See you guys there.
Thanks.
Great. So here you have it. As you probably figured out, these are not going to be long presentations, but it's really meant to engage with these cases, to probe into them, to understand, to dig, and so on. So please make a choice on one of the DPI projects and maybe have a second choice if that is already booked out, and choose one of from the case studies on Agile. I'm just repeating again, on your way out, get a sticker and stick it on the back of your badge with the 2 sessions. We are then going to break for lunch for 1 hour and 20 minutes. The program, we're actually we're on the minute in the program. We're going to shorten the lunch break from 1.5 hours to 1 hour 20 minutes because one of the things we don't have under control are the boats on the Zambezi River, and they are asking us to leave a little bit earlier than planned. So we're going to move the whole program 10 minutes forward. So at 14:20, you're going directly to the room of your session. We're not going to gather back here. You need to find your way on your own. Please be there at 14:20, not 30 as the program says. All the rooms are color-coded, and your sticker has the same color. So if you come up here at the entrance, you will see, but basically Kalala, brown, the brown room is where we are right now. This is the Kalala room. Then we have Kasuma and Matetsi. They're just across from here, next to each other. That's the green and the dark blue room. Gwai is when you pass through the coffee break area, where there is this roundabout there on your left, you will find Gwai. And Pagoda, that's a bit difficult to find. So if you choose group number 5, the insights from Cameroon, they are on a different floor. If you're starting from here, we have put up signs with arrows guiding you to that room for you to find, yeah? or otherwise you ask someone from us. But if you don't find it, start here. It's going down the stairs to the lobby area, but you will find arrows bringing you to this pagoda room. Let's make sure we are all ready at 14:20. We will then have 50 minutes to discuss those cases. We will have a coffee break back up here, and then your next session starts at 15:30, the second round of sessions at 15:30. We're only going to gather here in plenary again at 16:20, at 4:20. Yeah? That's the next time we meet all together in plenary for a short wrap-up and the instructions for the boat. And our tracker and weaver, Leonard, is going to give a short reflection, trying to tie different threads together. Good. One last, maybe the most important thing for now. If you want lunch, you need a voucher. If you don't have a voucher by now, they are going to be distributed here on your way out. You will not get lunch without a voucher, okay? Good. Yeah?
So at the end of the day, we meet here in plenary, and then we're going to go to the boats. So if you want to be comfortable in, in that boat, please bring your stuff from lunch. You won't have time to go back to your room to go to the boat. So just for you to know. So after the plenary and the summary of the day, we go on the boat. So if there is anything you need, take it now.
Great. Good. With that, we are 1 minute behind schedule. Enjoy your lunch, and we see us in the afternoon.